Recently, global pharmaceutical company invented and began selling a groundbreaking new drug for colon cancer. That is far more effective than previous treatments. But price of a 12-week course costs around $50,000. While wealthy nations can afford this, patients in developing countries cannot afford this new medicine and are left untreated, waiting for death, even though a life-saving drug exists. In this situation, an Indian pharmaceutical company began producing a generic version of the same drug without authorization or permission from company, and sold this drug for about $100 per month. Patient advocacy groups then petitioned their government to approve the importation of B's generic drug. So, should our country ban or allow the import and sale of this medicine?
Patents are designed to incentivize innovation by granting companies a period of market exclusivity. During the patent period, pharmaceutical companies can set prices to maximize profit. That's why new drugs are often very expensive. Even if companies have monopolies, they generally avoid sudden price hikes due to public backlash. A famous example is Martin Shkreli in 2015. Although the patent for a toxoplasmosis treatment had expired, no generics were on the market. Shkreli's company bought the rights and raised the price from $17.50 to $750 per pill overnight. This caused widespread outrage. Even U.S. presidential candidate Hillary Clinton condemned the move. Shkreli was later convicted of securities fraud and sentenced to 7 years in prison, along with massive fines and a ban from the industry. This case drew anger because the drug was cheap before the sudden price spike. But if the price is high from the beginning, as with many new drugs, it's often legally acceptable. For example, the cancer drug Avastin costs about $100,000 per year. Even for many patients in wealthy countries like the US, such prices feel crushing. After patents expire, however, generic competition usually drives prices down dramatically. Some argue that patent protection should be relaxed in limited cases even during the patent term, to improve access to essential medicines. 1. The purpose of the patent system is to encourage innovation, while also protecting public health and access to medicine, especially for vulnerable populations in low-income countries. 2. To solve current problems, some people insist to allow lower-priced sales of patented drugs in developing countries, only or granting limited permissions to produce or sell generics in low-income markets. This way, patients in developing countries can access life-saving treatments, and pharmaceutical companies can still profit from markets that can afford the original price. Opponents of such measures insist: 1. Cheap generics may be illegally re-exported to rich countries, causing major financial losses to the original patent holder. 2. If drugs are sold cheaply in some countries, wealthier countries may also demand lower prices, weakening the incentive for innovation. Several developing countries, particularly India, allow generic drug production even during the patent period. India has relatively weak patent protection, and local pharmaceutical companies often find legal pathways to manufacture cheap generics for domestic use. India also makes broad use of compulsory licensing for public health purposes, allowing companies to produce patented drugs without the patent holder's consent, as long as royalties are paid. But this policy can trigger trade disputes or retaliation. For example, during the AIDS crisis, South Africa passed a law allowing parallel imports of HIV drugs under compulsory licensing, and U.S. pharmaceutical companies pressured the U.S. government to challenge this at the WTO. But the lawsuit was eventually dropped after global public outrage. Brazil also authorized compulsory licensing for patented drugs not produced domestically. The U.S. government initially challenged this at the WTO, but withdrew after strong civil society opposition. Finally, Brazil and U.S. make an agreement that the generic should not sell outside of Brazil. India also give up the policy and follow international rules and regulations. Where should we draw the line between protecting patent rights and ensuring access to life-saving medicines? Should we strictly enforce patents, even if that means many patients in developing countries die without treatment? Or should we allow generics in certain cases, even during the patent period? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below.